Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Chen Ming won the battle in space by relying on his illogical psychic power and the mechanical race, which had never encountered such an enemy as him. However, after winning the battle, he found that the situation of the Queen Zerg on the ground was not optimistic. Just when he quickly dealt with the second batch of reinforcements of the mechanical race, the Queen Zerg was suppressed by the mechanical race. The reason lies in the centipedes, the main mechanical bodies of the mechanical race, encountered when the Zerg just entered the core area of the city. Those centipedes equipped with electric charge cannons can directly smash the most powerful frontline meat shields of the Zerg with a single shell, and rely on the aftermath of the explosion of the shell after penetration to affect a large number of Zerg. Although a large Zerg with a diameter of 40 centimeters will not die even if a hole with a diameter of 40 centimeters is opened on it, it also means that it has no way to share the damage for other Zerg. It can only let the explosion and arc rage in the Zerg swarm. So in the past 10 minutes, in front of the core area of the city, the mechanical race relied on the bombardment of the centipede's charge cannon to suppress the number of Zerg. And the mechanical centipede here is not only equipped with charge cannon, but also with two other weapons: Hellfire Cannon and Charge Machine Gun. The Hellfire Cannon is better, which is the flame shell version of the charge cannon, and the penetration performance is even worse, but the flame-killing range after the shell explodes is larger. But the effect of flame is not ideal when the Zerg on the ground have various means to counter it. On the contrary, pure impact or other damage can kill Zerg more. For example, the long-range artillery concentrated bombardment of the fiery silkworm that forced Chen Ming to use the high-point speed spear to support it, and the arc generated by the current charge cannon explosion. Both kinds of damage can bring devastating blows to the Zerg. And the charge machine gun also has the ability to destroy the Zerg. The charge machine gun is called a machine gun, but there is no difference between it and a machine gun. The bullet diameter is enough to easily break the limbs of the Zerg, and it also has the same terrifying penetration ability as the shells of the charge cannon. Coupled with the high firing rate of the machine gun itself, and the special performance of the charge bullets that explode at the point of impact, producing a violent arc. These bullets can frequently kill other Zergs after penetrating the front row of Zerg in batches. In the dense Zerg tide, the strength is much higher than that of the Hellfire Cannon. It is these three centipedes equipped with different types of weapons that led the rest of the mechanical race to suppress the Zerg's advance, and even looked like they were going to counterattack. Just as Chen Ming was about to start the idea of supporting the ground that he had just had before encountering the second wave of reinforcements from the mechanical race, he suddenly found that the fungal carpet under the feet of the Zerg suddenly raised a batch of fungi again. And the fungi were more dense than before, like a layer of purple curtain covering the frontline Zerg and mechanical race. Although the fiery silkworms and the centipedes equipped with the Hellfire cannons were quickly clearing the flying fungi, when the coverage area and density of the fungi reached a certain level, the flames could not completely remove them. At most, all the fungi that fell on the extremely high temperature of the fiery silkworms died. And most of the other mechanical races on the front line were still covered by these fungi. Chen Ming noticed the specialness of these fungi as soon as the fungi rose. They were not the fungi that the Queen of Insects used to sense the invisible units of the mechanical race, or it was not quite right to say that they were fungi. Because Chen Ming found that the key to the matter was not the raised fungi themselves, but the tiny bugs hidden inside these fungi. These were not the bugs that Chen Ming and the Queen of Insects had made in advance, but the new bugs that the Queen of Insects had just cultivated. The only reason why the Queen of Insects could cultivate new bugs was those centipedes that were difficult to deal with. This was the method used by the Queen of Insects to target the centipedes. Chen Ming withdrew his hand from the control panel at the highest point and continued to watch. It just so happened that he also wanted to know where the Queen of Insects' limit was. As a large number of fungi attached to the bodies of the mechanical race at the front line, Chen Ming found that these fungi gradually spread on the mechanical bodies and penetrated into the bodies through the gaps between their armor and structures. From the perspective of other Zergs, it was not possible to see what the fungi and bugs that penetrated into the mechanical bodies were doing. So Chen Ming immediately connected his consciousness to one of these micro-Zergs and broadcast what they saw in real time to his eyes. It is not quite accurate to say that they saw it. These micro-zergs have no vision. They rely on their own special structures and the surrounding fungi to perceive the surrounding environment. And because Chen Ming used the hive mind network and psychic energy to access the nerves of the micro-zerg to obtain the images that these zergs saw. So Chen Ming's perspective at this time was extremely distorted. But after adapting for a while, he got used to it and understood what the microbugs were doing. These insects that penetrated into the body of the mechanical race used the fungi that protected them to take root directly on the spot. They relied on absorbing the extremely tiny energy crystals they carried and the energy of the mechanical race itself to strengthen themselves and continue to spread. These fungi gradually spread to the bottom of the mechanical body and returned to the outside world. And they came into contact with the fungal carpet that had unknowingly expanded rapidly under the feet of the mechanical race and connected with the fungal carpet. With the nutrients provided by the fungal carpet, the fungi in the mechanical race grew even faster. Almost in the blink of an eye, the entire mechanical race was completely filled. Just when Chen Ming thought it was over, and the microbugs only needed one step to completely kill such a mechanical race. He suddenly found that these tiny bugs hiding in the mechanical race suddenly cocooned, just like the queen of insects. However, unlike the queen of insects, they did not break out of the shell after cocooning. Instead, countless nerve-like tentacles grew directly from the cocoon, following the fungi in the mechanical race, and gradually spread to the whole body of the mechanical race. Then Chen Ming saw through the sensor that a centipede with electric charge cannon, which was covered with fungi all over its body, suddenly turned its muzzle and fired an electric charge cannon at the rear of the mechanical front. Following closely, other mechanical races that were completely covered with fungi and whose micro-insects inside had developed to the cocoon stage also made the same move. They were controlled by the micro-insects, betrayed the mechanical race, and used them to deal with their own kind. Chen Ming didn't know how the queen of insects learned to control the mechanical body. It might be that the queen of insects learned and used it immediately. It might also be that some of the knowledge in his mind was shared through the honeycomb network. But in any case, the queen of insects did make another powerful attack before being pushed back. Although such parasites could not target those fiery silkworms that kept high temperatures all the time, the fiery silkworms alone could not play a decisive role. Because the number of mechanical races covered by fungi just now was at least 3,000, and nearly 2,000 of these 3,000 mechanical races had such a situation. The situation on the ground battlefield was completely tilted. With the betrayal of the centipedes, the mechanical clan's trump card, the Zerg immediately broke through the defense lines set up by the mechanical clan at the edge of the city's core circle and completely broke the mechanical clan's resistance. Chen Ming also took advantage of the favorable situation on the battlefield to communicate with the queen of the Zerg. He learned about the situation of this microbug, which was just barely evolved by the queen of the Zerg and was created based on it and the genes of parasitic plants and animals. The queen of the Zerg can evolve whatever the battlefield needs. This is the ability of the queen of the Zerg. It seems that the queen of the Zerg should not need his subsequent help. After consideration, Chen Ming decided to arrange for the cruiser to land on the planet in advance and prepare for the Zerg to start capturing the remaining mechanical clan individuals. After all, the main purpose of Chen Ming's raid this time was not to completely kill the mechanical clan on the planet, but to rob the population of the mechanical clan and the colony ship of the mechanical clan. With the possibility of reinforcement of the neighboring mechanical clan Starfield at any time, it is obviously very difficult to kill the entire city. Although if Chen Ming really wants to destroy the city, it is not impossible to just let the cruiser's large weapons wash the ground. But even mechanical individuals without combat capabilities are quite meaningful to Chen Ming. Chen Ming will not do things that harm others and benefit himself by washing the ground with weapons. Only the mechanical individuals that he has snatched are valuable to him. And now there are new bugs to assist him in capturing the mechanical race. Now the front line has been pushed into the core of the city by the Zerg, and the Zerg in the rear have spread in the city and started to capture. The frontline Zerg has approached the cruiser in the center of the mechanical city, and will soon be able to completely paralyze all ground forces and let the Zerg take whatever they want. However, Not long after Chen Ming started to implement his plan, an accident happened again. Not far from the mechanical cruiser, a unique and huge mechanical race that Chen Ming had never seen before suddenly appeared. Its existence once again curbed the pace of the Zerg tide. This mechanical family looks similar to a centipede, but it is twice as big as the centipede's average size of about 20 meters. Its size on the ground battlefield can be said to be far ahead of others, and it is 7 or 8 meters larger than the giant Zerg. However, it is meaningless to be huge, just like a centipede can easily shoot through a giant Zerg. So if this mechanical family is just an ordinary mechanical family, the Zerg would have run over it long ago. But since it can contain the Zerg tide, this mechanical family is obviously not ordinary. It exudes a high temperature like a fiery silkworm all over its body, but the heat it contains is much hotter than that of a fiery silkworm. And this heat that poses a fatal threat to the Zerg did not dissipate with the passage of time like a fiery silkworm, but gathered inside the body and actively transferred to the limbs and feet. Transferred to the ground in the mechanical city that had been specially transformed by the mechanical race. The metal ground gradually began to shine due to the high temperature. A heat wave also suddenly rose from the environment around the city. The core area of the entire mechanical city was heating up at a terrifying speed with this mechanical race as the center. The white city, originally built by Bayun steel alloy, was moving towards the orange-red heat. The Zerg relied on its own ability to influence the environment to suppress the damage caused by the flames. When the environment has gradually changed from a normal environment to an environment covered by high temperature and flames, the Zerg's methods are not very effective. Especially the fungal blanket in contact with the metal ground inside the mechanical city. As the Zerg advanced, the fungal blanket that spread in front gradually shriveled, lost water, and became inactive under this scorching heat that could cause a city area to start heating up and even began to burn in the end. Even if the queen of insects continued to increase the supply of nutrients to the fungal blanket, it could only barely keep the growth rate of the fungi equal to the loss rate. Once the supply of nutrients is slightly slow, the fungal blanket will be instantly burned into a pool of slag by the high temperature conducted by the metal, and will no longer be able to provide a steady stream of nutrients for the Zerg on the front line. This is not just a trouble that prevents the Zerg from continuing to move forward. In addition to the high temperatures that have begun to affect the environment on a large scale, some mechanical buildings that are not made of Bayun steel alloy have even begun to melt. This mechanical family itself is destroying the cities of the mechanical family. Even as the temperature spread by this mechanical family continues to rise, some buildings cast from Bayun steel materials have begun to melt under this extreme high temperature. The burning flames and molten metal almost cover the path it has walked and the Zerg it is about to meet. It forms a scene like purgatory. And this mechanical family itself has a huge cannon with an appearance like an electromagnetic gun, which is almost as long as the body and installed on the back. Chen Ming had seen the power of the centipede's weapon. It was a giant cannon carried by a very special individual of the mechanical race. It was definitely a terrifying weapon in ground combat. Although Chen Ming had not had much contact with the mechanical race, since he had more contact with Yu Hui, he had deliberately learned about the knowledge and news of the mechanical race next door, and he had some understanding of the mechanical race. But Chen Ming had never seen the mechanical race that appeared in front of the Zerg, never understood it, and had never found a similar existence in any of the materials he had searched. But Chen Ming was clear about one thing, that this mechanical race must have technology that was truly beyond this era. The heat emitted by a mechanical body that was only more than 40 meters long could actually affect the environment of the surrounding city. Although it was not the entire city, and the mechanical race city itself was basically made of metal, it was very easy to conduct heat. But a 40-meter-long body made the coverage area of dozens of kilometers warm up to this extent, which was definitely not something that modern technology could do. There must be powerful individual technology left over from that civilization. Although Chen Ming only needs to let one of the 5 cruisers in space mobilize a large weapon and use a tachyon spear to completely solve this problem. But after seeing the performance of this mechanical family, he wanted more. Moreover, landing operations do not mean that there will always be opportunities to directly use space weapons to carry out dimensionality reduction attacks on the ground like now. It is also quite beneficial for him to obtain such a special mechanical family. So after seeing the impact of this mechanical body, it and the cruiser in the city core behind it, Chen Ming wants all of them. So now he does not wait for the queen to perform herself, and the scanning array on the highest point that has begun to land is directly started at full power, trying to find weaknesses in this mechanical family that can quickly solve it. However, when this scanning array that can scan the entire planet scans this mechanical family, the result of the scan is pitch black. Except for the external armor and some exposed structures that can be scanned, the interior of the rest of this mechanical family seems to be covered with some special protective materials, and the scanning array cannot scan it at all. But this is also expected. Chen Ming can still analyze from some details on the scan surface that this mechanical family seems to be a temporary mechanical body used by the mechanical family. There are problems with many maintenance details, and it is obvious that it has not been well maintained. And combat equipment and weapons that lack maintenance and care often have problems during long-term use. Perhaps the only shortcoming of this mechanical family is that it lacks maintenance and cannot fight for a long time. It seems that the Queen Zerg can only rely on the number of piles and the sacrifice of a large number of Zerg individuals until it breaks down. After receiving Chen Ming's order to try to capture the machine, the Queen made the same choice as Chen Ming had just thought, commanding the Zerg to continue charging. But at the moment when the Zerg made a new and violent movement, the giant cannon on the back of the machine started moving. The surrounding heat suddenly began to gather towards the cannon in a way that violated the laws of physics. The barrel emitted a scorching red light, and the flanks of the cannon violently emitted a violent airflow carrying extremely high temperatures. The threat brought by the orange-red laser beam shot out by its locking device made all the Zerg swarms desperately rush forward, as if they had received extreme stimulation even without the Queen's command. But before the Zerg came into contact with the machine, the cannon had already fired. At the moment it fired, the whole city seemed to fall into darkness. All the light was absorbed by the giant cannon. In a blink of an eye, the area in front of the machine with a diameter of nearly a kilometer was occupied by a ball of fire that could only see dazzling flashes. Whether it was the Zerg or the mechanic that had not retreated to safety, even the mechanics' buildings themselves were covered by this ball of fire. And a few dozen seconds later, when the flames completely dissipated, all that remained was a deep pit. And at the bottom of the deep pit, there was a large lake made of melted metal liquid. In it, except for the mechanics' own people and their own buildings, the rest were all the Zerg's bodies that had been burned to ashes. The power of this weapon was close to the power of large weapons that were normally only carried on cruisers. And the Zerg suffered casualties almost equal to the losses they had suffered along the way in just a few seconds. The entire battle line was directly dragged back nearly 1,000 meters. The mechanic, which had already been defeated by the centipedes that turned against them under the control of the parasites, once again took this opportunity to regroup. They were not afraid of this scorching environment like the Zerg. If the Zerg wanted to come again, they would not have such a good chance as before. Moreover, the temperature of the surrounding environment has been rising and has gradually begun to affect the Zerg parasitic in the bodies of the mechanical race. If this continues, these mechanical races mixed in the Zerg pile may turn against them again at any time. The Queen of Zerg can only be forced to let these parasites retreat to the outer city. Then, let the surviving Zerg continue to rush to the defense line recast by the mechanical race in the distance. Only one step away from the mechanical race cruiser, the Queen of Zerg no longer cares about any casualties. Anyway, all Zerg individuals will return to the hive mind network at the moment of death, and their bodies will be reabsorbed by the fungal blanket. Even if the body is not absorbed and is directly burned to ashes by the flames, it doesn't matter. From the moment Chen Ming put the resources on this planet, he never thought about recycling the resources. He only needs those mechanical races. Time passed by minute. The artillery of the special mechanical race has fired more than a dozen times in succession. The casualties of the Zerg have reached a point that is difficult to calculate. Although Chen Ming could feel that the time it took for the mechanical race to start the giant cannon on its back was getting longer and longer, it was obviously due to poor maintenance. But it was only getting longer, and no key progress had occurred, so the Zerg could not break the current deadlock. Chen Ming was also a little anxious at this time. This would not work. He had to be faster. After all, the mechanical race was a hive mind, and the mechanical race inside the mechanical race star field could know everything that happened here. In other words, after the second batch of mechanical race reinforcements was easily killed by Chen Ming, the third batch of mechanical race reinforcements would definitely not make the same mistake as before. The third batch of mechanical races that came would most likely kill him. So he was now considering whether to give up this special mechanical race and instead only obtain his original goal, the mechanical race's colonial cruiser. But at the moment when Chen Ming was about to give up, he suddenly realized a problem. The movements of the mechanical race seemed to have a slight delay. Either the delay is caused by the wear of the parts due to lack of maintenance, or it is a strange delay that should not occur according to common sense. Chen Ming immediately said to Chao Fan, who was riding on the highest point, "Chao Fan, help me. I don't know how to command." "No need to understand. Help me calculate the propagation time of the mechanical family communication signal and the delayed reaction time of the mechanical family below every time it makes an action." Chao Fan did not reply, but sent a string of data to Chen Ming a few seconds later. When Chen Ming saw this string of data, a gleam of light flashed in his eyes, and he subconsciously said, "That's it? What's this?" Chen Ming looked at the special mechanical family on the ground again and said, "That mechanical family has no core chip, and all its actions are controlled by the cruiser." The strange delay he just noticed after a long battle was the time delay required for the signal transmission of the cruiser behind. This mechanical family is not a living mechanical family at all. It is just a controlled shell. Chen Ming finally found its fatal weakness. Chen Ming suddenly found that a method he had prepared before, which he didn't pay much attention to, actually played an unexpected effect. Because according to the technical level of the mechanical race and another civilization, judging from the distance between this mechanical race and the mechanical race cruiser in the city center, the signal sent by the cruiser controlling the mechanical body should not have any delay. The source of this situation now is that the planet-level communication blocking device with 3 components in one was activated by him shortly after the battle began, blocking the communication signals inside and outside the entire planet. Although Chen Ming felt that the effect was not ideal at the time, the external support of the mechanical race still came just as fast. And those orbital defense satellites that should have been effective, because he fired too quickly, even if the signals on the planet were blocked, there was no follow-up effect. However, Chen Ming thought at the beginning that it was better to do it than not to do it well, so even if it had no practical use before, he didn't care at all. But he really didn't expect that a device he casually arranged, which he had already arranged a little too much, would actually play a role at such a critical moment. Chen Ming did not hesitate after clarifying this point. Immediately, the 3 linked devices were remotely controlled to adjust their frequencies and slightly change their positions in orbit. All the power of the equipment originally used to block the communication signals inside and outside the entire planet was applied to the city of the mechanical race, acting on the location where the Zerg and the mechanical race were fighting. The signal sent by the mechanical cruiser was completely disrupted, and the communication signals of all frequency bands in the entire city were completely cut off. In a short period of time, all signals on the entire planet except Chen Ming will be silent. And the special mechanical body was paralyzed after it executed the last command it received. Without the support of this special mechanical race, the remaining mechanical races had no ability to resist the Zerg, whose total number has not decreased significantly so far. They were easily defeated by the Zerg. The Queen of Zerg once again wantonly splashed fungi and Zerg blood, relying on the effects of these special substances to continuously lower the temperature on the battlefield. At the same time, she was also trying to lower the temperature of the special mechanical body. In just a few minutes, the surrounding environment returned from the orange-red color just now to the pure white at the beginning. The molten metal liquid under the dozen or so almost connected huge pits blasted by the special mechanical body was almost solidified. At this time, countless Zerg bugs completely surrounded the paralyzed special mechanical body in 3 circles inside and outside. And those bugs that had already bypassed began to destroy the few defensive weapons on the cruiser in the center of the city. when all the external weapons used for security on the mechanical cruiser were destroyed. The temperature of the special mechanical body outside finally dropped to a level acceptable to the Zerg. The Queen immediately released those parasites to the special mechanical race, allowing the fungi and parasite nerves to completely control this mechanical race. Although unlike other mechanical races controlled by parasites, the parasites on this special mechanical race could not use its abilities excessively. But the performance of this mechanical race just now has left a deep impression on Chen Ming. Chen Ming feels that this mechanical race seems to be an elite individual among the mechanical race ground units, similar to HR. After all, this is just a machine body with a length of more than 40 meters, which is about the same size as two small frigates stacked together. The difference between it and other mechanical races is not too big, but its actual combat capability is exaggerated to the extreme. The weapons installed on its back can almost achieve the effect that can only be achieved by large weapons installed on cruisers of 2 levels higher. And not only that, this mechanical race also has the ability to change the environment, which means that it must have special technology. And the strong individual combat power of this mechanical race also reminds Chen Ming of Yin Xiong before. Yin Xiong can directly enter space with his physical body and condense a steel giant with the wreckage of a cruiser, and has the ability to fight against a cruiser fleet alone. If Chen Ming hadn't taken advantage of him by surprise, a wave of cruiser jumps and concentrated fire to force him to expose himself. Then he took advantage of Yin Xiong's arrogance to feed him some spaceship wreckage and counted the materials and logistics of several Yue colonies to supplement the explosives. Otherwise, it would definitely not be so easy to fight. Even so, Chen Ming only blew Yin Xiong half to death. If Chen Ming had not controlled the spaceship to check, Yin Xiong might have been revived with full health in a few hours. With Yin Xiong's ability, if he faced such a mechanical city, the whole city would probably be like clay in the hands of a child, at his disposal. This is the peak of individual combat power. And this special mechanical race used a mechanical body to influence the entire environment around it when fighting against the Zerg, and it was not at a disadvantage against the entire Zerg nest. It really made Chen Ming feel a little bit like Yin Xiong back then. So Chen Ming was not only arranging to transport this mechanical body as soon as possible and figure out what kind of working principle it had. He was also considering whether he should let the Queen of Zerg try to get an elite combat individual. Just like Yin Xiong, this mechanical body, or the large black Zerg that Chen Ming had seen in the Zerg's genes when he traced back his genes, its combat power looked pretty good. Although their final endings were similar, and not very good. Yin Xiong was rolled into a ball by Chen Ming to be used as an alloy furnace, and the special mechanical body was just kidnapped by Chen Ming. The Black Zerg finally entered the stomach of the Thorn Zerg and became part of their genes today. But their performance was indeed impressive and worth studying. Chen Ming thought he could give it a try. But not now. He still had things to do. The ground battle won the moment Chen Ming discovered the weakness of the special mechanical race. Only a few scattered mechanical races were left on the ground, carrying out some desperate resistance that was completely unable to organize on a large scale. However, the third batch of mechanical reinforcements must be on the way. Although it will take time for them to come, it will definitely not take too long. Chen Ming needs to speed up the cleaning of the mechanical tribe and complete the final finishing work. At the same time, pack up his spoils and retreat as soon as possible. Otherwise, he will definitely be killed by the reinforcements of the mechanical tribe that can come continuously. Chen Ming does not want to experience the situation where the special mechanical body is constantly attacked by the Zerg. But at this time, another unexpected thing happened to Chen Ming. Those mechanical tribes who were still resisting suddenly gave up the defense of the city and chose to retreat. Left the city from the other side opposite to the Zerg attack. And under the further oppression and attack of the Zerg when facing the retreat of the mechanical tribe, those mechanical tribes who could no longer escape from the city and fought desperately also began to collapse. The mechanical tribe seemed to have completely abandoned the city. Chen Ming's vigilance instantly rose to the extreme. He was thinking whether this was a trap left by the mechanical tribe. The mechanical tribe has been on the planet for at least half a year, so it is normal to leave some backup in other places. But even if it was a trap, there were some things he had to do, Otherwise, there would be no point in coming here. Chen Ming made up his mind and immediately controlled the Supreme Point, which had already started to descend in altitude, and the defenders protecting the Supreme Point, which was close to the ground, to gradually approach the city of the mechanical race and prepare to land. Prepare to take away the mechanical race that had been kidnapped by the Zerg since the Zerg broke through the core area of the city just now. There are fiery silkworms and special mechanical race individuals on the front of the battlefield and in the core area of the city that can increase the ambient temperature and inhibit the parasites of the Zerg. But the mechanical race outside the city is not so well treated. It is easy to control the mechanical race in large quantities by relying on the spreading fungi. Although the Zerg cannot directly connect the mechanical bodies they control to Chen Ming's psychic control like Yuhui, it does save a lot of trouble. As the defenders and the Supreme Point separated, they landed in the outer area of the city, ready to assist in the transportation of these controlled mechanical bodies. There were traces of jumps in space again. However, this was not Yu Hui's third wave of reinforcements, but the trace of the Colossus-class cargo ship that Chen Ming had snatched from Yu Hui before. A special cruiser-class cargo ship is the main force for transporting these controlled mechanical tribes. Although Hui Huang was still on alert in space at this time, he was also distracted to help the two ships on the ground manage the transportation of mechanical tribes as before. Seeing that the periphery of the city no longer needed his attention, Chen Ming also put his attention back to the highest point he was driving. Prepare to land in the center of the city and snatch the mechanical tribe cruiser. Without the defense of the mechanical tribe and all its weapons, the cruiser was just a lamb to be slaughtered. In addition, although the mechanical tribe ran away, Chen Ming still gave the Queen of the Zerg a new goal to continue tracking the escaped mechanical tribes. First, let the Zerg help him step on the possible traps of the mechanical tribe. Anyway, as long as the Queen of the Zerg does not have an accident, the loss of any other Zerg, or even all Zerg except the Queen of the Zerg, is a drizzle. The second is to get as many mechanical tribes as possible. After all, those who escaped were the mechanical race that could hold out to the end, and they were the backbone of the mechanical race's ground combat. The benefits of capturing these mechanical races would definitely be much greater than those of capturing ordinary logistics mechanical bodies. It was at this time that Chen Ming discovered that the Zerg actually had the ability to accurately track the mechanical race. Even though many mechanical races had left the city and were fleeing all over the desolate planet, the Queen Zerg could still accurately mark each mechanical race individual and let the Zerg units capture them. The reason why the Zerg could do this seemed to point to a deep pit inside the mechanical colony. Of course, it was not the deep pit that the special mechanical body had just exploded, but a pit that the mechanical race that existed here had dug by itself. This pit looked like a water storage warehouse in a sewage purification plant, but the liquid stored in it was all gray-green, similar to the color of Zerg blood. These things. Chen Ming suddenly remembered that these gray-green liquids were all pollutants produced by the nanorobots in the mechanical race when they were working. He remembered that the research reports on the mechanical race that he had read before introduced the unique pollution produced by this mechanical race, which had extremely strong diffusion ability and considerable toxicity. A little bit was okay. Just like the mechanical races that Chen Ming encountered on Reimu before, the amount of pollution produced was almost zero. But once the number of mechanical races increased and clusters were formed, the pollutants produced would cause extreme damage to the normal ecological environment. And even the mechanical races themselves did not have a good way to deal with these pollutants. So their approach was to find a place to store them first, and then discharge them into the environment after storing a certain amount. It doesn't matter to the mechanical race whether it is a habitable planet or not. They themselves are not affected by these pollutants. They just need to discharge them from any planet. This is why the Zerg can track the mechanical race. Each mechanical race individual has these nanorobots that produce pollutants. Nanorobots are the mark of the Zerg. Anyway, Chen Ming feels more and more that something must have happened between the Zerg and the mechanical race in the past, perhaps when humans had not yet stepped out of their own galaxy. Then the situation of the mechanical race is not right now. Because as Chen Ming thinks more deeply about the current situation, he suddenly remembers what Bai Quan said to him before. When the mechanical race fights with humans, They will definitely fight to the death and will definitely beat themselves to the point where they can't fight anymore. Bai Quan's fight to the death is definitely not the current situation. It is definitely a fight to the death with every soldier who fights to the last. It is impossible for the mechanical race to say that they don't know that someone is behind these Zerg races. Especially after Chen Ming killed the second batch of reinforcements of the mechanical race and swept the ground with the tachyon spear, the mechanical race should fight to the death. It is impossible to say that the mechanical race has lost the ruthlessness when facing the bugs as when facing humans. Instead, it seems to be a temptation, tempting the Zerg to continue to spend a lot of time tracking these fleeing mechanical races. At this point, Chen Ming finally realized one thing. The mechanical race's trap may not be set on the planet, in front of the fleeing mechanical race, but may be in a wider place. He raised his head and looked at the starry sky outside the porthole of the highest point. The third batch of reinforcements of the mechanical race may have arrived. The mechanical race knows Chen Ming's combat effectiveness and the situation of Chen Ming's fleet. They know that if they want to keep Chen Ming completely, they can't appear directly in front of Chen Ming's face. They must make some preparations and arrangements. Then it is completely reasonable for the mechanical race on the ground to cooperate and do something that they would not do under normal circumstances. After thinking this through, Chen Ming felt a sense of pressure in his heart. Those mechanical races that escaped from the city no longer posed a threat to the Zerg after losing their cluster. They were just walking trophies. The city was also abandoned by the mechanical race, and everything in the city was left to Chen Ming to control. The mechanical race was not using those mechanical races as bait, but using the entire city as bait to trap Chen Ming on this planet and in the galaxy. But Chen Ming still had no way of knowing how the mechanical race would do it. But at this moment, Chen Ming's psychic power suddenly took effect, and a sense of danger from outside the galaxy came into Chen Ming's mind. This sense of danger was like a cover that was gradually closing, gradually confining Chen Ming completely to this galaxy. Chen Ming took a deep breath and prepared himself mentally. Then he immediately gave the queen an order to directly recall the Zerg, no longer tracking the fleeing mechanical race, and instead focusing on capturing the mechanical race on the ground. He wanted to take away as many trophies as he needed before the sense of danger that he felt like a cover completely closed. Anyway, for Chen Ming, whether it is the escaped mechanical race or the mechanical race that stayed in the city, they are all individuals of the mechanical race, and they can enhance the hive mind network of his mechanical race. There is no essential difference. The only difference is the difference in the ability of their own former mechanical race bodies. But as long as Chen Ming masters the method of manufacturing mechanical races, the difference in the body will no longer be a difference. So Chen Ming directly changed his mind and captured the mechanical race individuals in the most efficient way. He didn't have much time. He had to start the jump engine and take the mechanical race he captured away from here before the last time point arrived. As for the Zerg on the planet, they will have to stay on the planet. After all, the number of these Zerg units has reached a terrifying level during the development of the Queen of Zerg during this period. Even if there have been many losses in the process of attacking the city, it is not something that two cruisers can take away in a short time. At that time, these Zerg will be directly absorbed by the Queen of Zerg and transformed into the most basic energy crystals. Chen Ming's psychic energy can just directly recycle these energy crystals to minimize the losses. 1 minute later, Chen Ming's highest point landed near the cruiser in the core of the city. During the landing process, Chen Ming had already released a batch of robots equipped with the afterglow core from the highest point and landed in advance with the landing craft. Following another defender that had been separated from the highest point, it landed in the middle of the city and began to clean up the battlefield with the Zerg. What Chen Ming wanted was to let these afterglows find the mechanical tribe with damaged lines, and then immediately connect to the lines for control. As long as the mechanical race is controlled by Chen Ming, it will be transformed into abnormal sub-individuals, and Chen Ming can directly transfer the consciousness of these abnormal sub-individuals to the honeycomb network of the mechanical race he built, relying purely on his consciousness and mental power to temporarily support the consciousness of these mechanical races. Save storage space on 2 of his cruisers. Anyway, Chen Ming's goal is indeed the consciousness of these mechanical races, not the bodies of the mechanical races. As long as the consciousness of the mechanical race exists, and these consciousnesses strengthen the honeycomb network to the point where new mechanical race consciousness individuals can be constructed, the problem of the body is actually very easy to solve. Then there is only one thing left for him to do next, to control that cruiser. However, he didn't have time to get off the ship. A piece of news that made him stunned on the spot reached his ears. The afterglow individuals installed on the robots he sent out failed when they controlled the mechanical races with damaged appearances. His mental power could not affect the consciousness contained in the core chips of the mechanical race. He could not control the individuals of the mechanical race. But when the Yuhui tried to access the bodies of the mechanical race whose consciousness had died, there was no obstruction. This strange situation made Chen Ming stunned for a while, and countless chaotic thoughts and ideas flashed through his mind. But he didn't have time to think about it. The means deployed by the mechanical race in the galaxy would not give him time to think. Chen Ming could only temporarily let those ideas be thrown into his mind like a mess and solve them later. Now let's take these mechanical races away from the physical level. As for the cruiser in front of him, he must try it himself. See why his psychic power can't control the mechanical race. Is there a problem with the transit Yuhui, or his psychic power? Or there is something wrong with these mechanical races themselves? Chen Ming came to the exit of the highest point. Pure white metal liquid gradually flowed out of his body, and at the same time, it was mixed with some bright green of Zerg energy crystals. The white cloud steel liquid gradually condensed into the skeleton of the power armor, and the color of the energy crystals gradually solidified on the skeleton and gradually turned black. In a blink of an eye, what appeared on Chen Ming was not the locust power armor given by Bai Quan, but a unique biomass armor. The covering of the black Zerg carapace gave the armor a biological beauty. It made Chen Ming look like he was not wearing a modern single-soldier combat equipment, but evolved into a ferocious insect. The original mechanical auxiliary wings behind the power armor were replaced by the Zerg Elytra, and the collision of the jet backpack was also covered with Zerg carapace, full of the texture of the Zerg biological spacecraft. This is a complete set of biological armor made by Chen Ming using his current biological technology and power armor technology, as well as the deep maintenance ability he had just obtained. Combining the advantages of the Zerg carapace and locust armor, it crushed the locust power armor as the prototype in almost all capabilities. It can be regarded as an attempt by Chen Ming. Chen Ming knew that biology and machinery are not two ends of the spectrum. They can be combined to do things that were originally difficult to do and reach a height that is more difficult to achieve than a single technology. In this attempt, Chen Ming found that the Zerg still had various shortcomings even after his psychic deep repair after communicating with the Queen. These shortcomings are the innate shortcomings of the species, and they cannot be made up by themselves. So Chen Ming had such an idea at the time and tried it. The result was obviously successful. The unique evolutionary ability of the Zerg and the crystallization of human technology are fully reflected in the biomass power armor that Chen Ming is wearing now. It proves that the way Chen Ming chose to make up for the shortcomings of the Zerg species is correct. He will make more attempts later. This biomass power armor is also the basis for him to have the confidence to leave the spaceship in the city of the mechanical race. Of course, there is another thing that gives him confidence: the psychic power of the Queen of Insects. To be precise, it is the psychic power of the insect race. After Chen Ming controlled the Zerg spaceship, he built a hive mind network belonging to the Zerg with his mental power. He can use this network to get the mental power feedback of the Zerg in the entire network, provide mental assistance, and speed up thinking. And these mental power and mental feedback, after the Queen of the Zerg devoured the psychic fungus, it took more than half a month to evolve into a psychic creature, and after Chen Ming used his deep repair ability to make the Queen of the Zerg violently evolved by devouring psychic creatures completely adapt to the Queen of the Zerg's body, and after being linked to the hive mind network, new changes occurred. In addition to the previous two, the Zerg hive network can provide one more feedback. That is, the Zerg psychic energy can be transformed into psychic energy fluctuations based on the propagation of the hive mind network, and then act on Chen Ming, who is also in the mind network. This means that he can also use the psychic energy of the Zerg. As a part of the Hive network and the builder of the Zerg Hive network, it is not an exaggeration to use the psychic energy in the network. It is better to say that Chen Ming, as a psychic who became a psychic very early, is more skilled in using psychic energy than the current Queen Zerg. The effect of the Queen Zerg's psychic energy is a simple and crude ability, which strengthens physical fitness through psychic energy. However, the physical strength of the Zerg is already there, and it only appears a little weak when facing the main units of the mechanical race. Therefore, such a newly awakened psychic energy is not ideal for the Zerg with extremely high physical strength, but it is completely different for Chen Ming. Chen Ming's own psychic energy is not like Yin Xiong or the Zerg's psychic energy, which can act on himself and strengthen himself. In addition to his regular exercise, his physical fitness is that of an ordinary person with slightly better physical fitness. The psychic energy that has little effect on the powerful Zerg body can improve Chen Ming's body more than a little bit, relying on the Zerg's mental power to transform into psychic fluctuations, feeling the sense of power filling his body. Chen Ming subconsciously clenched his fists, a little excited. However, he knew that he had no time to waste, so he immediately opened the hatch at the highest point and jumped high from the hatch. Relying on the biomass jet on the back of the biomass armor, the pure gray-green tail flame was ejected, and the strong physical fitness given by the Zerg's psychic energy. Chen Ming was like a swift Zerg in an instant and pounced on the top of the mechanical cruiser. Just as he had just stood firm, several passages suddenly opened on the mechanical cruiser that had been silent since the external defense weapons were destroyed, and several flying mantises and quiet mantises rushed out from them. Several flying mantises instantly ejected bright tail flames from their backs and quickly swung the sharp blades on their arms towards Chen Ming. If it was the previous Chen Ming, relying on his strong consciousness and thinking speed, he would definitely be able to see this scene very clearly, but the limitation of his physical fitness did not allow him to dodge and counterattack. However, now, with the pure physical strengthening psychic assistance of the Zerg, Chen Ming, who had no actual fighting experience, actually successfully dodged the attacks of two flying mantises. However, he could not dodge the attacks of the remaining three flying mantises and could only take them head-on. However, the strong protective power brought by the biological armor did not leave even a mark after taking the slashing of 6 flying mantis sickle blades. The impact of the blade slashing, after being buffered by layers, actually caused Chen Ming himself to have a greater impact than the impact of Xiao Shi jumping off the backrest of the bed and hitting him. For Chen Ming now, it was not even a tickle. He could even turn around and rely on the synergistic power brought by himself and the armor on his body to directly control the flying mantis next to him. When Chen Ming instantly tried to control the flying mantis with psychic power, he found that his psychic power was ineffective, just like when Yu Hui controlled these mechanical tribes before. Chen Ming frowned and said nothing more. He didn't have time to worry about this now. He directly used brute force to remove the arm of the relatively fragile mantis with the sickle blade from the vulnerable key point, completely killing the mantis. This is just pure strength, and the combat ability of the biomass armor is not entirely based on brute force. Suddenly, a black blade extending forward like a claw condensed on each of the armors of the biomass armor. Relying on the strength of the black carapace and various metals that can easily tear apart the white cloud steel, Chen Ming killed the other 4 mantises in an instant. The other static mantises that also appeared on the top of the cruiser and had dispersed to shoot at Chen Ming, but they were also unable to break through the defense. After killing the mantis, Chen Ming also used the electromagnetic javelin that could produce Zerg energy crystal-supported projectiles that condensed in his hand in an instant to hit their heads directly, and they died completely in the explosion of unstable energy crystals. Chen Ming's heartbeat was getting faster and faster. This unprecedented feeling of personally participating in the battle made him excited. Although this was not his own ability, he relied on the biological armor on his body and the psychic power of the Zerg to do this. But the face-to-face battle still made it difficult for him to suppress his excitement. However, he also knew what he should do now. So after excitedly clearing out several mechanical tribes that interfered with him, Chen Ming immediately touched the cruiser under him and took the initiative to activate the psychic power. The result was not surprising. The control failed, And when Chen Ming did not directly call up the psychic power himself, instead, he used the option of detected spacecraft signal. Do you want to connect? So on the panel, he got a prompt of signal conflict, unable to connect. This result made Chen Ming shut down for half a second. He took a deep breath and forced down the emotions in his heart. He stood up and flew into the air again with the biomass armor and returned to the highest point. A few seconds later, a large amount of metal liquid flowed out from the highest point and was transformed by Chen Ming into more than a dozen mechanical arms with different functions. These mechanical arms acted on the nearby mechanical cruisers, dismantled the facilities connecting the mechanical cruisers to the ground, and uprooted the cruisers that had already taken root on the ground. Although psychic power could not control it, physical control was still no problem. Take the cruiser away, there will always be opportunities to use psychic control in the future. After firmly fixing the mechanical cruiser at the bottom of the highest point, Chen Ming controlled the highest point to fly into space. At this time, on the other side of the city, the defenders and colossi also controlled most of the mechanicals that could be taken away with the help of the Zerg ground units and stuffed them into the spacecraft. They followed the highest point with the mechanicals that were also controlled and flew into space. At this time, the few cruisers left by Chen Ming in space were still safely in orbit, without any attack or other interference. So Chen Ming directly started the jump engine. But as expected, the process of the jump engine was interrupted before it even started. The mechanical race had already arrived outside the galaxy when Chen Ming's psychic power was alerted and began to blockade the interior of the galaxy. However, because Chen Ming had noticed something wrong before, he focused on efficiency when doing things on the planet. So he returned to space just when the mechanical race had not yet completely completed the blockade of the galaxy's jump engine, and sensed the gap that the mechanical race had not yet completed in blocking the galaxy. As long as Chen Ming's ship could reach the gap that had not yet been completely closed, he could get rid of the situation where he might be blocked and beaten by the mechanical race in the galaxy. So Chen Ming immediately commanded several cruisers to sail towards the gap in his psychic perception. And when Chen Ming's fleet was about to reach the edge of the galaxy, through the scanning array at the highest point, Chen Ming finally found the cruiser that the mechanical race had arrived long ago but had been hiding and was setting up a blockade device, and other escort fleets that were protecting this cruiser to block the gap. In fact, the mechanical race wanted to prevent Chen Ming from not jumping but flying out of the blockade area from the normal space by relying on the ship's own engine. So they evenly arranged multiple cruisers around the galaxy, but there were more of them in the gap that had not yet been closed. But the mechanical race's fleet here was only a dozen cruisers that could be considered troublesome to Chen Ming. So Chen Ming chose to completely ignore the loss and maximize the effectiveness of his psychic power. 5 rounds of 8,000 meteorite drones flew out from the Stardust-class flight deck in succession, with terrifying red light, and rushed towards the mechanical race's fleet blocking the gap. As long as he could break through the defense line formed by these cruisers, Chen Ming could safely start the jump engine and retreat. But as Chen Ming's fleet broke into the scanning range of the mechanical race also reacted very quickly. In just a dozen seconds, more than 20 cruisers located in different positions in the galaxy made a short-distance emergency jump, arrived at the gap, and came to stop Chen Ming. Moreover, the scanning array at the highest point also scanned a new jump wave. The huge coverage of this jump wave also made Chen Ming's eyes widen, because behind this jump wave is either a cruiser fleet of at least 50 ships or a battleship. As long as Chen Ming fights for his life, he can fight against 20 or 30 cruisers with the terrifying output and defense capabilities of his cruisers. But more than 80 cruisers are really not something that Chen Ming's 5 cruisers plus a Stardust can deal with. Not to mention the battleships, only the battleships can threaten the battleships. Without the battleships on the front battlefield, other spaceships are garbage. Therefore, as long as he delays the mechanical race for less than 30 seconds, he will have no chance of escape. So Chen Ming made a decision instantly. He must jump immediately. In fact, when Chen Ming arrived near the gap and saw the mechanical race setting up jump blockade devices outside the galaxy, he could have started the jump engine. However, if a cruiser with the jump engine started is attacked, it has almost no defense ability. Therefore, Chen Ming had previously thought of killing the fleet here first, breaking through the scope of the galaxy completely, and then jumping, which is the safest way. But now the situation is obviously not so smooth. So Chen Ming's choice now is to lose a defender that has not installed the Alpha-class Afterglow core and has taken away the least number of mechanical races. Let it withstand the concentrated fire of the next mechanical race fleet, and the other cruisers immediately start jumping on the spot, no longer seeking to escape from the mechanical race's firepower range. It would be really fatal if it was delayed at this time. As Chen Ming's command was issued, the Defender and the 8,000 meteor fighters that the Stardust class had just released rushed towards the mechanical race fleet together. The other cruisers behind began to slow down and started the jump engine. At this moment, the jump fluctuations that had just existed gradually subsided, and a fleet consisting of more than 50 cruisers and dozens of destroyers and frigates jumped here. Chen Ming breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was not the main battleship, but another cruiser that Chen Ming guessed, with a larger number. But Chen Ming suddenly found that something seemed wrong. Almost all of the newly arrived mechanical cruisers were injured, and there was hardly any uninjured destroyer or frigate. It was as if they had just experienced a brutal battle. And at this time, the scanning array that had not yet completed the jump process and had not left the highest point of the galaxy suddenly scanned something. Just where the reinforcements of more than 50 mechanical cruisers arrived, where the jump fluctuations had just subsided, some strange fluctuations appeared. Some fluctuations were similar to those of the jump engine, but nothing jumped over. And the fluctuations disappeared quickly, and it seemed that there was nothing abnormal. But at the moment when the wave disappeared, Chen Ming suddenly felt a sense of extreme danger from the center of the mechanical family fleet, where the strange wave disappeared. The next moment, the side of a wounded cruiser of the mechanical family, which was closest to the wave, suddenly seemed to be hit by something, and a huge dent appeared on the armor of the ship. The whole ship also crashed into the same spaceship next to it uncontrollably. In a blink of an eye, two groups of fireworks appeared in the space. Before the fireworks completely disappeared, the scene that just happened again on another mechanical family cruiser. The hull was hit violently by something and crashed into other spaceships uncontrollably. In an instant, several spaceships were completely reduced to wreckage. In this process, Chen Ming sensed a huge source of danger wandering inside the mechanical family fleet. Chen Ming didn't know what it was, but Chen Ming knew that it was extremely aggressive and constantly destroyed the mechanical family spaceships. What the hell is this thing? This question flashed through Chen Ming's mind. So he quickly asked the defender to retreat and return to his side. At the same time, he immediately and forcibly suppressed the startup process of the jump engine. At the cost of losing the life of the engine, in exchange for the jump engine to maintain the highest output power, that is, the jump engine can be started at any time for jump retreat. Anyway, the damage to the engine life is nothing in front of Chen Ming, and it can be repaired at any time. Chen Ming wanted to stay here for a while. He wanted to figure out what it was that could kill several mechanical cruisers so inexplicably and so easily. Chen Ming's several spaceships turned around and kept a safe distance from the mechanical fleet. At the same time, all scanning equipment at the highest point started at full power, scanning the situation inside the mechanical fleet. But the scanned results showed that nothing was scanned except the mechanical ships themselves. It was as if the destroyed spaceships of the mechanical family were destroyed by their own people. But the obvious external forces on those spaceships would not deceive people. There must be something that caused such damage. And it was definitely not some small physical enhancement psychic who punched it, but something that was really close to the size of a cruiser that hit the mechanical cruiser. In the galaxy, it seemed that something that could not be seen, scanned, or detected was destroying everything of the mechanical race. Even if the mechanical cruiser had its shield turned on, it would be useless. As long as it was not a full-range shield like the one at the highest point that completely protected the ship, there would always be a few places on the spacecraft that the shield could not cover, and there would always be exposed positions. Then they will be attacked by the source of danger. However, the mechanical race seems to be completely unconcerned now. They are charging towards Chen Ming as if they did not see that the source of danger is constantly destroying their warships. They continue to fire at Chen Ming's fleet that is still out of range. Chen Ming is not worried anyway. He has already pressed the jump engine to the extreme. If there is any problem, he can jump away at the first time. It's just that Chen Ming clearly saw that many weapons and projectiles or energy beams hit the source of danger in his perception when they were shot in his direction, but the source of danger did not react at all. It can't be seen, touched, or hit, but that thing can do all this in reverse. It seems not to be in the normal cosmic environment, but it can affect this universe. The mechanical race was targeted by such a terrifying thing. Half of the mechanical race's cruiser fleet of more than 80 ships were destroyed in a blink of an eye. None of them can escape the attack of the source of danger and get close to Chen Ming. But Chen Ming feels that it won't be long before that thing is likely to target him. He knew that he couldn't stay here for long. So at the moment when the Defender also entered the final stage of the jump engine startup, he loosened the restrictions on the jump engine, and the 6 cruisers entered the jump together. Chen Ming's spaceship disappeared. Only the source of danger continued to destroy the mechanical race. As time passed, until the source of danger destroyed all the mechanical race spaceships in the galaxy gradually became quiet. But less than a few minutes had passed. The city of the mechanical race on the planet that had been destroyed by Chen Ming once suddenly welcomed the attack of the source of danger. It continued to destroy the city and defeated all the mechanical races that barely survived and were not captured by Chen Ming. In just over 10 minutes, hundreds of huge manta-like traces that were tens of meters deep underground and at least a kilometer long were left in the city that was almost entirely made of white cloud steel. It waited until the entire city was engulfed in flames under this terrifying attack, and then it returned to space again. Using the unique fluctuation, following the jump trajectory it came from, it returned to the star field of the mechanical race again. If Chen Ming still stayed here, he should be able to guess what the mechanical race was like during this period and why the development of this galaxy was so slow. However, if he really stayed here, he might have the same ending as the mechanical race. Fortunately, he had already started the jump engine in advance and escaped successfully from the gap that the mechanical race had not yet completely closed. Headed to the Empire. After all, the jump trajectory can be tracked, and Chen Ming would not be stupid enough to run directly to the temporary base. If you run to the Empire, you don't have to worry about the mechanical race tracking you at that time. At the same time, you don't have to worry about the source of danger chasing you. At least Chen Ming still believes in his boss's ability. However, when Chen Ming reappeared in the city where the pirate space station was located after 2 more jumps, he was basically completely safe. Chen Ming's heartbeat still accelerated a lot, and some belated cold sweat appeared on his forehead. If he had been a little greedier in the mechanical city before and let the Queen of Insects track down the escaped advanced mechanical individuals, wasting some time in the process, he might have died here today. Not only the subsequent recruitment of the mechanical race, but also the source of danger that made the cruiser defenseless. So Chen Ming kept thinking after calming down. What exactly is that thing? Chen Ming had not learned about any similar existence from any research report he had read, or the only information he had. So Chen Ming thought about it and called Bai Quan. Bai Quan quickly answered Chen Ming's call and asked, "Is it over?" "It's over. It's going smoothly, and there is basically no loss. But I have a question." "Ask." "Well, I can't explain it clearly. I'll send you the video, and you can watch it yourself." "Okay." Bai Quan opened the video sent by Chen Ming and started playing it. Chen Ming explained casually, "This happened when I was preparing to evacuate after I had achieved my previous goal. You also saw it. I had 5 against more than 10. Bai Quan looked at the 5 waves of 8,000 meteorite fighters that flew out from the Stardust class that he had given to Chen Ming before, and subconsciously pushed his glasses. He had imagined how powerful Chen Ming's psychic power was before, but now he couldn't help but feel that it was a bit too exaggerated. This is just a cruiser. What if it is a main-class aircraft carrier? How many fighters can Chen Ming release in a short time? Although the Empire currently does not have a main-class aircraft carrier equipped with unmanned fighters. But to be honest, if Chen Ming really decided to join the Imperial military or government one day, as long as it had been verified for a period of time, the Imperial high-level officials would definitely immediately start to arrange for Chen Ming to design a battleship and let Chen Ming participate. This made Bai Quan want to recruit him out of habit, but he still held back. Since Chen Ming had questions to ask, he would wait until Chen Ming finished asking. It looks okay, right? You should be able to defeat it. Any problem? What Chen Ming saw was even more shocking than what he heard, so he just said, "You'll know if you keep watching." More than 30 cruisers from the mechanical clan jumped over immediately. Even if I have psychic power, a Stardust can't defeat them. So I decided to sacrifice a cruiser to cover the rear, and the other ships jumped on the spot and ran away. Bai Quan nodded slightly and said, "There's nothing wrong with this decision. You must pay a loss when necessary to survive. And for you, the only loss is the cruiser itself, and there is no loss of other manpower." Chen Ming didn't care about the loss of any ship at all when he had the disassembly psychic power to transfer materials at will, and agreed, "Indeed. But the problem is not the loss, but other things." Bai Quan's terminal screen was already playing the moment when the strange wave appeared. Just a few seconds later, Bai Quan also saw the scene of the mechanical clan's fleet being hit by something. Bai Quan subconsciously stood up from the desk in his current room, looking serious. "I have to go ask." Bai Quan looked like he had already made a guess. Chen Ming said directly, "I feel that this thing is a bit like the one you mentioned some time ago." Bai Quan responded without waiting for Chen Ming to finish, "I feel the same way, so I have to ask, wait for my news?" "Okay." Bai Quan hung up the call anxiously. He immediately took the video Chen Ming sent to him and went to the exclusive research institute under the headquarters of the 14th Corps where he was currently. Only Chen Ming was still thinking about the situation of the more than 50 cruisers and the source of danger. First of all, Chen Ming can be sure that the more than 50 cruisers of the mechanical race, even if they were injured before arriving at the galaxy, must have been provoked by his own troubles with the mechanical race's colony planet. It is not because they failed to target the source of danger and were driven here. Because these more than 50 cruisers have no ability to resist in front of the source of danger. Assuming that the mechanical race already knew about such a dangerous thing in advance, it is impossible for them to call more than 50 cruisers at one time to target this thing. If you can't hit something, one ship is a gift, and 50 ships are also a gift. The mechanical race will not be so stupid. If the mechanical race does not know about this thing, the purpose of these more than 50 cruisers is indeed only Chen Ming. So Chen Ming feels that it is very likely that the mechanical race's reinforcement fleet happened to encounter this thing on the way. Although he is still not sure whether the mechanical race knows about the source of this danger. But it is likely that the mechanical race's fleet has suffered a lot of losses after fighting with this thing, or being beaten unilaterally. The remaining fleet of the mechanical race chose to continue to the destination, which is the colonized galaxy attacked by Chen Ming outside. The city built by their colony has collapsed under the attack of the insect tide. In the case of no return, leaving the instigator Chen Ming behind and killing him is already the best result for them. Then it is also a good choice to divert the trouble to others when necessary. Anyway, even if they fail, those things they have lost because of Chen Ming will never come back. So it is better to exchange greater losses for a greater possibility of killing Chen Ming. The mechanical race was indeed ruthless. Unfortunately, Chen Ming ran too fast. The source of danger brought by the mechanical race was the mechanical race itself. As Chen Ming roughly guessed the process of what had just happened, he suddenly took a deep breath again, because he still had many questions in his mind. What exactly was the source of danger? How did the mechanical race provoke this thing? These two questions were still unanswered as always. So Chen Ming temporarily stopped thinking about this matter and waited for Baichuan's response. At the same time, there was another thing waiting for Chen Ming to solve. That was that his psychic power could not control the mechanical race. Chen Ming had tried it himself with psychic power before, and when he saw the prompt later, he basically understood the situation. He knew exactly why he could not control the mechanical race. In fact, the answer was very simple. Only psychic power could fight against psychic power. Although this sentence is not absolute, it is often reasonable. The hive mind network between the mechanical races in the entire mechanical race starfield is just like Chen Ming's own mechanical race hive network, which is linked together by psychic energy. It is precisely because the mechanical races on Chen Ming's target planet are connected to the cruisers in the city core, and the cruisers are connected to the higher-level hive network. So he can't control these mechanical races that have been affected by psychic energy. The discovery of this situation also made Chen Ming figure out one thing. In fact, he had been thinking that the metaphysical thing of hive mind should be disconnected when the distance is far enough. What kind of hive mind can continue to be maintained across hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of light years? And it can also transmit everything that its own kind sees without any obstruction? Obviously, the same hive mind Zerg is divided into different populations, and each population may fight internally. Just like the mother of the queen controlled by Chen Ming found another Thorn Zerg population on the orbit of the previous independent mechanical race and directly devoured the other population, turning it into its own nutrition and then evolved into a destroyer. The hive mind network among the Zerg is obviously based on the tribe. But the mechanical tribe can be integrated into such a large star field, and there is more than one star field in the entire universe. Only a few independent mechanical tribe clusters may not be in this huge hive mind network. Chen Ming didn't understand it before. Until today, he found that the answer had already been reflected in himself. Psionic energy is the basis for maintaining such a hive mind network whose coverage is measured by the star field. Chen Ming felt that he should have thought of it earlier, because the first thing related to psionic energy that he came into contact with, the Whispering Spirit Stone, was something he got from the mechanical race. The mechanical race itself is different from Yuhui. They are the legacy of another civilization and are born with psionic energy. So it is normal for their hive network to be built with psionic energy. Of course, this does not mean that there is a psychic behind the mechanical race to control them. When Chen Ming tried to control the cruiser himself before, he felt that the psionic energy of the mechanical race was a dead thing, not an extension of the will of a psychic. The boss, Yin Xiong, and even the Queen of Worms that Chen Ming had contacted were different. When a psychic or a psychic creature uses psionic energy, the psionic energy fluctuations it emits will reflect the state of the psychic's own mind. Other psychics can sense the emotions of the psychic emitting psionic fluctuations through these psionic fluctuations. No matter how calm a psychic is, when he uses psychic energy to emit psychic energy fluctuations, his psychic energy fluctuations will also carry a trace of the psychic's calm emotions. Even if he is not a psychic, but an ordinary person, he will also have subtle feelings when he comes into contact with psychic fluctuations and can feel the emotions of the psychic. Although Chen Ming does not know much about psychic knowledge, he has used psychic energy many times in front of Lao Wu and the factory director. In the past, when he occasionally chatted, he happened to learn about these strange knowledge about psychic energy from them. So if such a mechanical race that spreads throughout the universe is controlled by a living psychic, then Chen Ming dare not touch these mechanical races. But when Chen Ming tried to control the mechanical race before, he did not find any emotional fluctuations from the hive thinking network. The mechanical race's honeycomb network is built by a dead object, a mechanical device similar to a mind pulse generator. And it is not difficult to crack a dead object. The mechanical race relies on psychic chaining, but not every mechanical race individual can use the psychic power of the hive mind network to do things to resist the control of Chen Ming's psychic power. It's just because of the instinctive protection of the psychic hive mind network that Chen Ming's attempted control without force cannot be directly effective, that's all. Chen Ming only needs to make his psychic power aggressive and forcibly destroy the original network connection of the mechanical race, and the rest will be easy. So even before, when Chen Ming stood on the mechanical race cruiser, as long as he wanted, he could directly solve the influence of the mechanical race's psychic power on them and control the ship himself. The mechanical race lost a lower-level core of the hive mind, so the rest of the mechanical race was also in Chen Ming's pocket. The reason why Chen Ming didn't do this was because things were not that simple, and there would be other impacts later. The mechanical race is the mechanical life of the hive mind. Destroying the hive mind network of the mechanical race is tantamount to directly digging out a piece of the mechanical race's brain. Although this is just a city of mechanical tribes, it is not fatal to the mechanical tribes, but the damage is absolute. And it is extremely serious damage. And all intelligent species basically have a common problem. Those who have helped you will be forgotten after a while, but those who have hurt you will never forget in this life. This means that if Chen Ming does this, the entire mechanical tribe will know his existence and know that Chen Ming has caused serious damage to them. There are just more than 50 cruisers coming to chase and kill them. If they continue to make trouble, the mechanical tribe may really send a main battleship to come when they meet next time. And if the mechanical tribe only knows that Chen Ming is a person with considerable combat ability and can control the Zerg, then next, the mechanical tribe will find that he is a psychic who can cause fundamental destruction to the mechanical tribe, just like Yu Hui found him before. But Chen Ming was still weak before, and Yu Hui and humans did not have such extreme conflicts as the mechanical tribe and humans. So Yu Hui and humans will exchange some captives and supplies. That is why Yu Hui wanted to take Chen Ming away as soon as he found him, to try to recruit him, or to extract his spiritual awakening nerves. But if the mechanical race knew of Chen Ming's existence, they would never give Chen Ming any chance, and would definitely hunt him down with the highest standards. They knew best how much of a threat a psychic who could cut off the mechanical race's honeycomb network would pose to them. Once Chen Ming was caught, his life would definitely be gone. So if he really destroyed the mechanical race's honeycomb network, it would be very dangerous afterwards. He had to think about it again. Anyway, the mechanical cruisers that Chen Ming took away were already damaged, and the mechanical individuals on them had been cleaned up, so he would definitely not be able to escape by himself. Chen Ming also brought the mechanical cruiser into the Empire. Even if the mechanical race has a hive consciousness and knows the location of the cruiser, it is impossible for them to really chase after it. So as long as Chen Ming does not take the initiative to provoke the mechanical race will not have any other influence except knowing that he is now in the human empire. Moreover, the location of the temporary base has not been exposed, and the mechanical race is unlikely to cause trouble for his temporary base. Chen Ming still has time to think about whether to take on such a trouble. Then he is not in a hurry to give a conclusion immediately. It is better to take a break first and wait until his mental state returns to the best before thinking about this problem. And since he has returned to the Empire and is now at the edge of the galaxy of the pirate space station, he must go back to the space station. And just now the patrol team in the galaxy came over and wandered around, took a look at Chen Ming's fleet, and ran away. Although Chen Ming did not know the people of the patrol team of the pirate space station, they all knew Chen Ming and knew the situation of these cruisers. So Chen Ming was left at the edge of the galaxy. But they will definitely pass on the news of Chen Ming's return. So Chen Ming must go back and say hello to everyone he knows. But before returning to the space station, he still has one thing to do. Count the harvest. Originally, Chen Ming's target this time was mainly the mechanical individuals, which were used to expand his own hive network. The second was the mechanical colonial cruiser, which would definitely help Chen Ming's own colonization in the future. The other gains in the process of fighting with the mechanical race were indeed unexpected surprises. So now the overall harvest is simply calculated. The most important thing is the mechanical individuals whose total number has exceeded 30,000, all of which are parasitized by the desperately multiplying parasites and cannot move. It can only be said that Chen Ming does not know how so many mechanical races were stuffed into 2 cruisers, but in short, he did it. Although these parasites have basically entered hibernation without subsequent nutrition supply, while they are hibernating, they can also force all mechanical activities of the mechanical race to stop. Those mechanical races, except for still maintaining normal individual consciousness, are almost equivalent to dead mechanical bodies that are completely unable to move. Chen Ming can just find a place to store them first. After Chen Ming is ready to control the mechanical race, he will control them in batches. Finally, send these mechanical races to the city on the planet where the mechanical races in Chen Ming's hands are located. Chen Ming estimates that after he controls this batch of mechanical races he just captured, he should be able to completely build the honeycomb network of the mechanical races he controls. Let him be able to produce the individual consciousness of the mechanical races by himself like the Zerg network. In this way, as long as he can supply enough materials to the mechanical race in the future, the number of mechanical races will also begin to surge like the number of Zerg. It's just that this material is a bit troublesome. After all, the main material of the mechanical race itself is high-grade metal biune steel. If there is no stable output of or veins, the money spent on simple acquisition is really too much. Moreover, Chen Ming's colony has not yet found a suitable galaxy and has not officially started construction. It is not a good idea to spend money on the mechanical race. So the expansion of the mechanical race will have to be considered again. However, as long as the consciousness of new mechanical individuals can be produced, even if the mechanical race in his hands falls on the front line, he can still use psychic energy to recycle all the materials, and there is no need to worry too much about losses. Anyway, they can all be recycled and reused. As long as the scale of the battlefield does not exceed the number of mechanical races currently controlled by Chen Ming. It doesn't matter if it exceeds. In addition to the mechanical race, Chen Ming also has the Zerg to serve as the combat power of the ground battlefield. In addition to the individuals of the mechanical race, Chen Ming's second largest harvest this time is the mechanical race's cruisers. In addition to the colony ship that Chen Ming took away on the ground, there are also 8 cruisers from the second wave of reinforcements from the mechanical race. 5 of them were blown to pieces in Chen Ming's meteorite fighter sea. The internal cores of these 5 cruisers were damaged in the explosion and lost the psychic protection of the mechanical race. Therefore, the remaining large pieces of wreckage had been dismantled into materials and sent to the temporary base, which made up for the Bayun steel materials he urgently needed recently. Although the remaining 3 ships were not blown up together, they had basically lost their combat capabilities under the attack of the meteorite. They were previously tied to several other cruisers by Chen Ming using a crude method. Then they were taken to the galaxy where the pirate space station was located during the jump. Before, Chen Ming was not sure what kind of mental power would be consumed in the subsequent battle. At that time, he did not waste mental power to control the 3 cruisers that had lost their combat capabilities and even their ability to move. So he didn't notice that his psychic power couldn't control those mechanical races. Now Chen Ming also tested it a little and found the same result. Just like the other mechanical races, these 3 cruisers are also under the protection of the mechanical race's psychic hive network and cannot be controlled. However, after Chen Ming's subsequent scanning, he found that the 3 mechanical race cruisers were all combat-type cruisers. The internal structure is similar to that of ordinary mechanical race individuals. In addition to various devices that realize the functions at the beginning of the design, the remaining are 3 cores: a core chip, a secondary core, and a device for storing nanorobots, all of which have been upgraded to the cruiser level. Overall, it is actually an ordinary cruiser. And they are 3 identical standard cruisers, with no special system devices on them. Only the colony ship is slightly special, and its internal structure is very different from other mechanical race cruisers. Anyway, Chen Ming didn't just throw the colony ship to Hui Huang for research. Let Hui Huang figure out how to use the mechanical colony ship, and then combine Yu Hui's own colonization method with the early colony construction plan that Chen Ming obtained from the Empire. Combine the 3 to develop a plan that can adapt to Chen Ming's future colony construction. Chen Ming believes that Hui Huang will definitely develop a result. When he actually colonizes in the future, he will be able to reflect his true value. In addition to the spacecraft, Chen Ming also gained something special this time: the special individual of the mechanical family. Because this mechanical family is directly controlled by the cruiser, there is no core chip installed, and there is no consciousness of the mechanical family on it. So Chen Ming can directly control it without any restrictions. And its name also appeared in front of Chen Ming: Mechanical Heavy Machinery, Purgatory Demon King. Energy Reserve, 27%. Main Weapon, Imperial Industry Cannon. Secondary Weapon, Charged Shock Cannon *2, Charged Machine Gun *2. External Armor, Mechanical Heavy White Cloud Steel Armor. Self-Awareness, none. Important Equipment, Purgatory Core in operation, Core Chip, missing, Personality Secondary Core in operation, Nano-Level Maintenance Machinery, 33%, Thermal Energy Solidification System, in operation, Thermal Energy Extraction Device, in operation. Available operations: repair, deep repair, /modification/disassembly. Chen Ming took a quick look at the things on the panel and then clicked on the Purgatory Core in the Important Equipment column of this mechanical body named Purgatory Demon King. Although there is no detailed introduction to this thing on the panel, But Chen Ming can understand its function by his own understanding. He is the source of the Purgatory Demon King's ability to control and influence thermal energy. He is the real core of the Purgatory Demon King compared to the core chip and the secondary core, and he is also a special relic of another civilization in the true sense. Just like the cryogenic computing engine that Chen Ming had heard about from Bai Quan. The cryogenic computing engine is a supercomputer that the destroyed civilization uses to calculate combat-type events. It needs to absorb heat to maintain the high-speed operation of the computer. While completing its main tasks, it can also achieve the outrageous effect of entropy reduction, which violates the laws of physics. Although the purgatory core is not as exaggerated as entropy reduction, it can also control entropy increase and the steady-state distribution of entropy in the environment. It changes the surrounding environment on a large scale, making it more suitable for silicon-based life such as the mechanical family, and not suitable for any carbon-based life. Chen Ming has seen it before. What he wants to know now is whether this core can play a greater role in his hands. For example, mass production. For Chen Ming, even if it is a relic of another civilization, as long as it is in his hands, it can be controlled by his psychic power. Then the psychic energy will automatically let him master the use of the things he controls. When the use method is clear and the internal structure can be analyzed through three-dimensional imaging, Chen Ming can completely analyze the internal structure of this purgatory core. From the outside to the inside, they are the outer shell, isolation layer, operating layer, and core layer. There is nothing much to say about the outer shell, which is a variety of interfaces and protective core shell. When Chen Ming saw the isolation layer, he was stunned for the first time. This isolation layer can isolate high temperature from the outside. And from the inside, it can isolate the psychic fluctuations emitted by the internal operating layer and core layer. Chen Ming blinked his eyes to confirm that he was not wrong. The operation of this purgatory core relies on psychic energy. Its operating layer and core layer are all made of pure psychic materials to form a complex mechanical device. Although Chen Ming can see the structure of the entire core clearly, without understanding the principle, there is only one question left in his mind. How did this happen? Chen Ming carefully checked it again and again, confirming that there was no trace of any psychic creatures or spiritual nerves in the core. This is really an object that can produce psychic effects made purely by technology and psychic materials. An object that can allow mechanical life such as the mechanical race to control psychic energy. Chen Ming did not change on the surface, but his mind was already full of thoughts. The most frequent one was the galaxy marked by the coordinates he had obtained from the mechanical race's satellite. He must go there. There must be something more outrageous than the purgatory core or even the cryogenic computing engine. Chen Ming took a deep breath for a few seconds and suppressed his unrealistic thoughts. He put his attention back on the Purgatory Demon King itself. In addition to the core, there are some other valuable things on it. For example, the Imperial Industry Cannon. This thing is also very special, because Chen Ming also found a mechanical structure made of psychic materials inside this weapon. This thing is a psychic weapon. Psychic weapons. To be honest, Chen Ming didn't know much about psychic weapons, but he could clearly feel that the Emperor's cannon was a strange one among psychic weapons. Chen Ming had always believed that psychic weapons were either purely auxiliary, and in addition to providing psychic users with psychic power, the performance of the psychic weapons was the same as the sample they were made from. For example, his revolver, which was called Ming by the designer, only had the function of assisting him in using psychic power, and its attack performance was no different from that of ordinary revolvers. Others were either what Chen Ming had seen on the website whereby Quan registered his weapons. Those psychic weapons left by deceased psychics that belonged to them and could be used to match the user's psychic power to exert psychic effects. Or something like a mind pulse generator. This was a device that directly used psychic waves to attack creatures, and it could also be considered a psychic weapon. But the Emperor's cannon was different from these. It is a type of psychic weapon that uses psychic materials to build a mechanical structure that can achieve psychic effects to achieve effects that were originally difficult to achieve. After all, the Imperial cannon is only a cannon with a length of more than 30 meters. And at this size, it can frequently fire projectiles with an explosion diameter of nearly a kilometer, which is obviously achieved by relying on the mechanical structure built with internal psychic materials. Under normal circumstances, if a weapon of this size is only a disposable weapon, it can be easily done according to the current technological level of the Empire. Chen Ming can definitely learn the relevant technology casually. But under this size restriction, it takes no time for a mechanical body that is only the size of two lowest-level civilian frigates stacked together to use it many times, frequently, and even without much cooling time. And if the use of his psychic energy is also restricted, the difficulty will be completely different. The long-term heat dissipation problem, continuous energy supply problem, recoil problem, and various problems that must be dealt with in the miniaturization of weapons under this size. All are problems. Moreover, under normal circumstances, many of these problems cannot be solved by replacing materials according to their properties. Rather, the physical rules clearly state that they are impossible to achieve and cannot be solved. But obviously, this imperial artillery is not ordinary. And psychic energy is not ordinary either. Therefore, all the problems that should have appeared on this imperial artillery did not appear, and all were solved by psychic energy. Moreover, Chen Ming could see that this weapon not only utilized the strength properties of psychic materials themselves, it also clearly utilized the special mechanical structure constructed by psychic materials in its design, making these rigid materials show an effect similar to that of psychics using psychic energy. And the more special point is that the mechanical race itself is just a honeycomb network built by psychic energy, not that the mechanical race itself has mastered the use of psychic energy. So in a sense, this is equivalent to allowing ordinary people to do what psychics can do. Chen Ming found that he seemed to have found the main direction of his future research from this weapon. Psychic materials can do many things that normal weapons cannot do through special structures. Chen Ming's psychic power can also make many weapons do things that they cannot do under normal circumstances. The combination of the two will definitely have a better performance. Although Chen Ming's current technical level is still at the cruiser stage, his systematic understanding of psychic power is close to zero, and he has come to today purely by groping all the way. There is no problem for him to use psychic power himself, but he can only think about it if he really conducts research and systematically manufactures psychic weapons. Even if the Emperor's industry cannon is placed in front of him, he can only understand the actual effect now. The structure constructed by the psychic materials inside is completely incomprehensible, let alone figuring out the principle and designing new psychic weapons according to the principle. But Chen Ming is not in a hurry to give up. He is very clear about his progress all the time. As long as he is given time, he will always have a day to master this knowledge. This Emperor's industry cannon is not only a weapon for the Purgatory Demon King to appear in the position where Chen Ming needs it in the future. It is also the best reference for Chen Ming to conduct psychic weapon research in the future. The only two things of special value on the Infernal Lord are the Infernal Core and the Imperial Cannon. Other than some matching heat control equipment, there is nothing special about the others. After all, it is still a ground unit and cannot compare with the real crystallization of technology, the battleship. Just like the army cannot compare with the navy. Of course, Chen Ming is referring to the battleships of the mechanical race. Although he has only seen a few ordinary mechanical cruisers so far. But since the mechanical race has special mechanical ground units like the Purgatory Demon King, it is completely inferred that the mechanical race has some equally special warship units. And if the large weapons of the warships, or even the main weapons, also have things similar to the Imperial Industry Cannon, or even things similar to the Purgatory Core and the Cryogenic Computing Engine, that would be the truly terrifying thing. If Chen Ming has decided to control those mechanical races, then these things will definitely come into contact with them sooner or later. However, Chen Ming also believes that the Imperial military knows much more than he does in the battle with the mechanical race. Many things that he cannot find out now do not mean that he cannot find out with the help of the relationship of the 14th Legion. So he can ask Bai Quan about the relevant things, but he has to wait until Bai Quan finds out what exactly destroyed the mechanical race fleet before. Chen Ming temporarily put aside his attention to the Purgatory Demon King and then shifted his attention to the other mechanical races. Although the Purgatory Demon King is indeed very outstanding, the other ordinary individuals of the mechanical race are also very good. The Queen of Zerg attacked first, crushed the troops, and the battlefield situation started unfavorably. They held on for a long time, and even showed signs of counterattack in the middle. It was not until the end that they were killed by the Queen of Zerg with the specially cultivated Zerg. It is definitely wrong to say that such mechanical races have no value. So Chen Ming also counted the current individual types of mechanical races, which will be useful in the future. After all, the Zerg race is led by the Queen of Zerg, but there is no individual like the Queen of Zerg in the mechanical races under Chen Ming's hands. All these mechanical races directly obey Chen Ming himself, or Chen Ming himself is equivalent to the Queen of Zerg in the mechanical race. So in the absence of the Queen of Zerg, he needs to personally command the mechanical race, and some things are always unavoidable. Instead of being in a hurry in the future, it is better to take advantage of the right time now to figure out everything that should be figured out. Chen Ming roughly summarized the types of mechanical races. They can be divided into 6 levels: micro, small, standard, medium, large, and heavy. Chen Ming currently has only one type of micromechanical family, micromechanical body, a worker bee. Although there is only one type, worker bees actually have more detailed differentiation. Their individuals will install different tools on different worker bees according to different work requirements to achieve different functions. Chen Ming counted them casually, and the mechanical family he has can be divided into about a dozen worker bees with different functions. Basically, it is a pure logistics type of mechanical body. In the future, when Chen Ming's colony is built, it will definitely be no problem to use it to help Yuhui individuals. There are 2 types of small mechanical families, namely digging worms and termites. Chen Ming has seen digging worms before. It is a mechanical family with a body size of 3 or 4 meters that is good at civil engineering. Termites are a combat-type mechanical body similar to digging worms, but more slender and flat. Equipped with a close-range artillery, equipped with armor-piercing explosive bombs specifically for destroying buildings, it is a siege unit. It's just that Chen Ming had hardly noticed this kind of mechanical race in the previous battle. After all, the mechanical race was the one being beaten, and the number of termites was indeed very small. Among the more than 30,000 mechanical race individuals that Chen Ming took away, the number of termites was just over 10. This thing is a useful, but rare type. The further standard type is more special. All humanoid mechanical bodies are classified in it. Although they are smaller than the digging worms and termites classified in the small type, they are standard types. To be honest, this is a bit intriguing. After all, the word standard is still very special. However, Chen Ming was just guessing. Without substantial evidence, he didn't think much about it. In short, there are quite a lot of standard mechanical bodies. Like flying mantis and quiet mantis are classified in it. Then, when fighting the Zerg before, the mechanical bodies of the mechanical race that could fly and cause some trouble to the Zerg swimming dragon were also divided into them. And another invisible mechanical body Minglong that could kill the Zerg and spray liquid energy crystals was also included. They are all units with unique abilities, and each has its value. In addition, Chen Ming actually found a mechanical body of the same model as the flying mantis, shield mantis, which has almost no presence. It is equipped with an electromagnetic rifle and a special device. It can build a strong electromagnetic force field around itself to block any metal from approaching, and its function is basically to block bullets. But the Zerg does not shoot bullets at all, nor does it spit out anything made of metal, so this kind of mechanical race did not play a role in the previous combat power. So Chen Ming did not care about this kind of mechanical body at all. But now he took it out and saw that he felt it was still a little useful. At least it would be effective when facing humans or Yuhui who can use live ammunition weapons. Chen Ming currently has 2 medium-sized mechanical tribes, namely the fiery silkworm that he has captured before. The other is the non-combat type mechanical tribe carrier ant that is more common in the mechanical tribe city. Just looking at the name, you can tell what this mechanical tribe is used for. However, it can actually do more things, but for Chen Ming at present, it is not of much value. Then there is the large mechanical tribe, of which Chen Ming currently has only one, namely the centipede. Although the centipede can be further divided into 3 types: Hellfire Cannon Centipede, Charged Shock Centipede, and charge machine gun centipede. But there is no need for this. Speaking of which, Chen Ming suddenly remembered the idea that came to his mind when he just saw the centipede's weapons. Just study these electric weapons of the centipede. Electric weapons are different from electromagnetic weapons. Electromagnetic weapons simply use electromagnetic acceleration to fire high-speed live ammunition. And the electric weapons use special electric bullets that can be charged, which can produce explosions and arcs when the bullets hit. Chen Ming feels that it has great potential. Although his fleet is now basically using energy weapons, and this thing is real ammunition, it is really effective. Steal first. No, learn first. Who knows when it will be useful? And since Chen Ming has only fought 2 battles with the mechanical race and has already obtained the electric charge weapon, it means that the Empire must have obtained the sample of the electric charge weapon earlier than him. But since Chen Ming has never learned the relevant knowledge, it must be that the Empire has blocked the information about this weapon and used it for the army. Since there is a quality guarantee from the military, Chen Ming will not lose out if he learns it. Finally, there is the heavy mechanical race. Chen Ming only has one, that is, the Purgatory Demon King. Speaking of which, Chen Ming suddenly noticed that the naming method of this Purgatory Demon King is different from that of ordinary mechanical races related to insects. I don't know if that civilization has a special interest in insects, or if the translators of the Empire have some strange hobbies. In short, there are only so many types of mechanical races that Chen Ming currently controls. But there must be more models of mechanical races. It's just that one of the 2 mechanical cities that Chen Ming found was located at the border of that civilization and had already declined, while the other colony was still developing, which led to the current situation. After summarizing the mechanical units obtained, Chen Ming also sorted out all the Zerg units, including the individuals that evolved independently from the queen in the battle. In addition to the broad-stalked worm, giant spider, vesicle worm, and shell worm that were there at the beginning. It is the blood explosion worm that has been playing a role, although it has little presence. It sprays a large amount of Zerg blood through self-detonation, interfering with the normal operation of the mechanical race. Although it dies quickly, it does play a lot of usefulness. It's just that Chen Ming has not figured out the principle of Zerg blood interfering with the operation of the mechanical race. Although it does not affect Chen Ming's use of Zerg blood, he has to investigate it if he has time. In addition, there is the main force that advanced on the front battlefield between the Zerg and the mechanical race before, the largest in size, and the giant Zerg that Chen Ming simply and roughly called Titan Worm. Liquid crystal worms that can spray unstable and explosive energy crystal liquid. Cone crystal worms that can launch cone-shaped products of Zerg carapace and energy crystals, used by the Queen to intercept the bombardment of the fire silkworm artillery. There are also fungal fluid worms that can spit out a large amount of sticky fungi, but this kind of worm is simply used to restrict the flying mechanical insects such as the flying maggots. The restrictions are too great, there are too few scenes where they can be used, and there is not much meaning. However, another kind of stinging scorpion flying insect is more valuable. It is a high-speed flying melee Zerg unit, which is very useful when facing the more vulnerable back row of the mechanical race. The black carapace gives it powerful protection and sharp weapons, except that it is easy to be wiped out on a large scale by the range fire attack of the fire silkworm. It has no obvious disadvantages. The last remaining insect is called Parasite by Chen Ming. It is the key to the Queen's comeback when she almost flipped over, directly controlled a large number of mechanical centipedes, and pushed back all the way to the center of the city. It is also the key to help Chen Ming obtain so many mechanical tribes. It can only be said that the Zerg has evolved to a very powerful level without knowing it. Some Zergs may be useless if taken alone, but when all these Zergs belong to a Zerg nest, they have an advantage in ground combat that no other forces can match. Of course, the Zerg also has shortcomings, such as the long breeding time. The breeding of Zerg now basically depends on the Queen to actively control the fungal blanket to generate Zerg larvae. Then the larvae are differentiated into different adults according to needs. In general, it takes a long time, and the Queen needs to keep an eye on it. That's why he needed so much time to prepare when he attacked the city of the mechanical race. Chen Ming already had some ideas about this problem. That is, let the Queen of Zerg find a way to evolve a factory similar to that of the mechanical race, a biological factory unique to the Zerg. The mechanical race can rely on factory assembly lines to produce mechanical individuals. But once the Zerg is separated from the Queen of Zerg, Chen Ming has to find a way to give birth to new Zergs. But if this idea can be realized, the Queen of Zerg can build a few breeding factories like the mechanical race, and even if it is out of its control, it can produce Zerg individuals on its own. That would be very valuable to Chen Ming. And Chen Ming does not need the Queen of Zerg to be able to fully come up with his ideas. Chen Ming only needs the Queen of Zerg to come up with a prototype, and the rest can be completed by his psychic power. Chen Ming can also study the ideas in his mind when he saw the Infernal Lord before when the Queen of Zerg is studying the Zerg buildings. That is to create a special individual with powerful abilities that belongs to the Zerg and Chen Ming himself. Although the special individuals of the Zerg may not have the outrageous combat power brought by the use of the Purgatory Core like the Purgatory Demon King, but Chen Ming's psychic power can always produce some unexpected effects, and the Zerg now has psychic power itself. The combination of two psychics can't be inferior to a psychic device made purely by psychic materials and special manufacturing technology, right? And Chen Ming actually has a special idea, and he can try it out when the time comes. At this time, Chen Ming suddenly received a message from the Queen of the Hive Mind Network. It has now regrouped the Zerg attacking the mechanical city and retreated deep underground. At the same time, it also destroyed the underground passage and began to absorb the bugs, gradually transforming the bugs into energy crystals, which Chen Ming can take back at any time. If the mechanical race wants to dig out the Queen of the Deep Underground, it will definitely take a lot of effort. But the greater possibility is that it can't be dug out, because the Queen of the Bug transmitted a picture to Chen Ming that he just didn't see. A memory of the Queen of the Bug herself, just after Chen Ming ran away with the fleet. The insects on the ground who had not yet completely evacuated saw what was happening in the mechanical colony. That is, the buildings and the mechanical race itself that were constantly being violently destroyed by something that could not be observed, as well as the huge manta ray-shaped marks. This should be an important clue to confirm what the source of the danger that Chen Ming perceived was. Chen Ming really couldn't take out this scene. After all, memories can only be transmitted in the Hive thinking network. Chen Ming himself is the builder of the Hive network. In the Hive network, other people and other mechanical equipment cannot be connected to the network. However, Chen Ming thought about it and felt that it should be okay. Since Bai Quan reacted so strongly before, he must have made a very accurate guess. He should come to him soon. In short, Chen Ming's gains this time can be summarized as his mechanical race and the mechanical race Hive network can become stronger, providing him with more mental power and other assistance. The premise is that he chooses to take the risk of the mechanical race. At the same time, the Zerg has also become stronger, which is really stronger. In addition to the evolution and deep repair that Chen Ming had given the Queen of Zerg before, there were also new species created through communication. The evolved bugs on the battlefield are all proof of becoming stronger. Even if some of them are specifically targeted bugs, they have their limitations. But parasites are obviously not in this category. Parasites are very powerful and dangerous. Because the objects it can act on are not limited to the mechanical race, but Chen Ming will not let the Queen of Zerg use parasites to deal with any enemies other than the mechanical race for the time being. He will never be exposed to the vision of anyone or any species with normal thinking. Although Chen Ming himself did not gain much in combat power this time. But as long as the mechanical race and the Zerg race become stronger, Chen Ming will also become stronger by relying on the feedback of the honeycomb network. So it's almost the same. After summarizing the gains this time, Chen Ming breathed a sigh of relief and slightly moved his tibia. Arranged the destination of several cruisers later. The Defender and the Colossus were left at the edge of the galaxy by Chen Ming because they were carrying the mechanical race members that he had not yet controlled. They could not go back for the time being, at least until Chen Ming had figured out whether the benefits were worth it for him to control those mechanical races. Anyway, he was in the galaxy of the pirate space station, and there should be no blind people coming to this place. The remaining two cruisers used hyperspace to leave the pirate galaxy for a distance, and then return to the temporary base through several jumps. Brilliant and Glory had things to do at the temporary base, and fighting the mechanical race was just a guest appearance. Their business at the temporary base was the real business. After finishing the other 4 cruisers, Chen Ming controlled the High Point in Stardust to go to the pirate space station. Although the main business of development is important, there are still some other things waiting for him to deal with.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.